think about is this. Is Watergate a matter, and when I say mere historical curiosity, it's one of the central episodes of American history, or does it also tell us something about the political system going forward? And so, Carl and Bob, you guys wrote that Watergate was a brazen and daring assault led by Nixon himself against the heart of American democracy, the Constitution, our system of free elections, the rule of law. And so anybody in the panel can take off on this. Do you see this as an event that's capable of repetition, or was Nixon a one-off, a figure so bizarrely gifted and tragically flawed that we don't have to worry about his like again for some of the reasons of hatred and maybe tapes also, Bob, that you were referencing before?
Well, the tapes are, I hate to repeat, are so important. When I was doing one of my books on President Obama, I went in to interview Obama and brought 2 tape recorders because I didn't want to have an 18-and-a-half-minute gap. And his press secretary said, "Oh, yeah, tapes. Oh, we know a lot about tapes." And I reminded them that if you go to the Nixon Library, they have a little doll's house mock-up of the Oval Office, and it says, press a button here and a red light will go on everywhere there's a microphone. Press the red light and the Oval Office lights up like a Christmas tree. There were 5, maybe 6 microphones on Nixon's desk. There were microphones in the chandeliers in the Oval Office. So I mentioned this to Obama, and Obama said, "Boy, I better get somebody to check those chandeliers." But then he said, he turned to his press secretary and he said, "Can you imagine if everything we said in here was taped?" And my thought was, I hope so. And if you get to this, it's exactly the right question that Ruth is asking about, where does this fit in? And it clearly is unique. What is, and Ken is the expert on the tapes, what always struck me is Nixon, as Elizabeth said, resenting anyone who had any privilege. Oh yeah, the moment there's a tape which you gave us where Nixon discovers that somebody in his White House is meeting with all the Ivy League presidents. He goes bonkers. He just says, "What? Who's meeting with those Ivy League presidents?" And then he goes into one of his rages. He said, "They will never again be in this White House. Never, never, never."
And from there to the Jewish Ivy League presidents.
Yeah, so that's a little redundant, right?
No, he said the Jews were all psychiatrists.
Let's take what you're asking about now, then. And as I say, I don't think we can know about if history, but what we do know is, one, that it was the accident of that break-in at the Watergate that enabled us to know what we know, and the second accident was the discovery of the tapes. Otherwise, forget about it. And what all of this shows is how we need to know about what happens in our government and our presidency. And if you want to go to today and look at Twitter-dominated news and look at the 24-hour free-for-all, what is so apparent is we're not learning what's really going on, and it's particularly true of the presidency. Take a look at Bob's work in Watergate, what happened here, our books, and continuing in Bob's other books about the presidency. If it hadn't been for those books, we wouldn't know much about the succeeding presidencies. That's the truth. We would know very little about the truth of the succeeding presidencies. And I did a book on Hillary Clinton and discovered that, to understand the Clinton presidency, you had to understand everything about her and her role. You didn't see that reflected in the coverage, really.
And I think just to pick up on this, that to find out what's really going on takes time.
That's right.
It takes months or years. If you take Carl's book, Woman in Charge, about Hillary Clinton, it is long, exhaustively reported. And if you read that book, as I have, it is, I mean, at the end, in the final chapter, you, and this, I'm sorry, he's my pal, I love him, but this is a wonderful book. And it is so relevant right now because I think Hillary Clinton is in the news every now and then.
Really?
And at the end of the book, you quote one of her associates who is a supporter who says, you know, I think about Hillary running and you know, Bill as the first, whatever he would be, the first husband. And this person says, I'm not sure I want the circus back in town. And I think that's a question everyone should ask. And the Clintons, both of them, have very strong points, but it gets mutilated by the news system we have. You don't get the details. And the point Carl makes in this book at the end, which is an incredibly balanced account, goes back into her childhood, her time in Arkansas, the difficulty she has many times dealing with the truth in reality. But in the end, you make the point, which people should understand, is we're now thinking about whether she is going to run for president, whether she should be president. You say that Hillary, in a way, is her own worst enemy because she's misrepresented herself, that she has so caught up in the politics of things, so caught up in the secrecy of things, that the better side of her, which is quite religious, am I right, Carl?
Yes.
Is somebody who has a really large heart and cares about these issues, has been masked by the way she presents herself. So if you look at that book, you look at what's, pardon?
No, go, finish the point, but I just wanted to go back to a few Watergate points.
Okay, well, but that's the, this
is
is
a Watergate
Watergate.
point.
This is Watergate because
Pardon us.
the question is, what is the standard we're going to make our judgments on? Is it good information? Is it solid? Is it well reported? Is it balanced? Is it fair? Or is it a bunch of sound bites and a bunch of tweets?
That in the aftermath of Nixon's experience, no sane president we will not have LBJ tapes, we will not have Nixon tapes. You know, people are scared to keep diaries, et cetera.